Welcome, everyone, to Octane 21. I am Lakshmi Hanspal, Global CSO for Box. And with me today, I have Tiffany Benton, Business Systems Manager at Bain Capital, a Boston based firm. We're going to talk to Tiffany about an exciting conversation on the state of the businesses today, what kind of digital transformation and pivots organizations are looking for, and also the state of Content Cloud and how it is powering their customers and also organizations to move forward, especially in today's challenging time. But before that, just to set the context, we're going to take a quick look about the state of secure content cloud today. And I wanted to share a few messages on Box with you today. Box is a global provider and a leader of secure content cloud, headquartered in the Bay Area, but has global offices. We're very much in the business of transforming how our customers empower themselves, empower their businesses to thrive, and make changes in the lives of their own customers. With that in mind, here's a bit of a layout of our 100,000, a few of our 100,000 plus customers, a majority of the Fortune 500 that utilize Box, have Box in their environment, and are using it for some major transformations, whether it is with vaccine trials, which are recent and top of mind for many companies, to financial transformations, to payment transformations, to onboarding their customers in certain financial firms, to insurance claims, and so on. Right. So when we think about secure content cloud, content is the data that drives businesses, and it's very important that content works for every single business that you see here. Even before the pandemic, now we're in challenging times today, but even before the pandemic, the the work or the process of work was fundamentally changing, right? It was moving away from office aligned work productivity to more purpose aligned work productivity. So we saw from a scheduled office based work environment to more of an agile work from anywhere, powering from any channel of access sort of environment that needed to be supported. So when we talk about the future of work, the now is about moving from internal collaborations to empowering external collaborations with partners, with service providers, with our customers, with support organizations that can help the fundamentals of the business thrive as well. Future of work also included digital automated workflows, which pivoted from manual processes. One needed apps that were simple, intuitive, easy to adopt, easy to use, from legacy complex software that needed quite a bit of training. And most importantly, it meant that how can we empower all of this for the future of work? And the future of work is actually now, it's already there, it's no longer the future. How can we empower this securely? We're going to talk about frictionless security and compliance, but it's important that content is protected, but it can be empowered to work for the organization to deliver results as well. So, with that in mind, today's businesses need frictionless security and compliance. But what does that mean? What does that look like? What do outcomes look like for that? So, the first is that the controls around the content that protect the content are built in, not bolted on. And that means that they are precise. They are guardrails that don't get in the way of productivity of users. Security and compliance are automatically applied. You could think about classification of content working behind the scenes to protect data. You can think about um, policies, corporate policies being applied on content that help to keep it under regulatory and legal obligations. So being unobtrusive is important. And the third is that to do it in a way that users, custodians, owners, reviewers, approvers, any role that you play for that content, you are empowered to proactively secure the content, but also empowered to use that content to deliver transformation in your field. So today's businesses, when we think about multi-channels, users with their devices of choice, looking at applications that empowering content. So if you think about that life cycle there, we have to think about strong authentication, device trust, trusted and untrusted devices. How do you differentiate access from those two different domains? Enterprise grade scaling, enterprise grade security. This includes encryption, key management, data leak protection and prevention, threat detection. And this is all applied in the content lifecycle as well. So from creation to sharing to updates to modifies to delete and purge, the controls follow the content rather than being systemic in nature. And of course, we have a number of policies that apply in region. So, in region data jurisdiction for in region storage. And so, those policies being met as well. Frictionless security and compliance with box checks the box across all of this, but in a way that across users' devices, their applications of choice and the content that is empowering their transformation, they can focus on what they do best, which is on the business side, while letting the the platforms such as Box take on the responsibilities on security and compliance and data protection. Now, when we think about any platform, I think sustained operations on the platform is important. And one of the ways to sustain operations is automation. And automation has always been our best friend. And in today's world, it's a new best friend for any operational leader that is thinking about how do I sustain operational excellence within an environment, right? And one of the ways to do that is through workflow. So when we think about why should content be waiting on human action? Why can't it power itself? Why can't it be agnostic about what it needs to do, data aware, and power itself through a process? That is what workflows do, right? They take the content. So if you think about a claims process with the claims input, whether it's a photo, an auto claim, or a house claim, or life insurance claim, whatever that may be, the evidence collection, capturing evidence collection, to reviewing the evidence, to coming to a decision on approved or disapproval, to connecting it end to end to payouts. This end to end process can be automated, right? And in a way, it is not waiting on human intervention, it is not waiting on human action, but it's saying that I know who I am as a content, I know how to power myself, and let me create a sustained process. So we think that the collaboration and workflow is a very powerful tool in that way. And so when we standardize processes across the organization with self-service, and these are all no code workflows, they are more building blocks of how you would build it. These are some examples where you can think about budget reviews and contractor onboarding and headcount. Actually, within Box we use some of this for our headcount requisitions, M&A deal room, as well change order processing. I mean, these are all uh, business workflows that are prevalent in many organizations that can be sustained through automation workflow. Now, no organization today can exist in a bubble. Every organization needs to have their best of breed integrations, and Box has 1,400 plus of such integrations, a few of them in different spaces here. When you think about mobile security, DLP, e-discovery, and secrets management, and identity and authentication, you can see Okta as a partner in the identity authentication space there. But it's important to work and to operate and collaborate and exist in this trusted partner ecosystem, because each of these integrations tap into their strengths and then bring that strength to power the integration. So integration with Box, the data continues to be in Box, it doesn't leave it, but any one of the users can operate in the comfort zone of the ecosystem they want to operate. For example, they could operate in O365, they can operate in G Suite tools, they can operate in the environment that they want to operate, while having the sort of the rest assured that their content is still protected within the multitude of environments that they can operate in. So with that, we're going to transition to having a conversation with Tiffany. Tiffany, welcome. Thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait to have a conversation with you and talk to you about organizational transformation that you have been part of. But before that, give us a sense of lay of the land at your organization. Give us, the customers that you support, the size, and then we'll get into the meat of the discussion.
Sure, Lakshmi. Thanks for having me. It's super exciting to be here, and I love to have these types of conversations. So I'm happy to have it with you guys. As Lakshmi said in the beginning, I'm a business systems manager at Bain Capital. We're a Boston-based multi-asset investment firm. We have about 22 offices worldwide, and we have about 1,200 employees, full-time employees. On top of that, we have about 500 contractors as well. So we're servicing and kind of giving access across the board, whether it be regionally or different kind of classifications of employees as well. I head up our enterprise platforms department. I manage all of our platforms that kind of touch everybody, which gives me a little unique perspective. Lashmi, you were saying a second ago, it's important to kind of know one application can exist in a bubble, and that's definitely something that we hold near and dear and looking for best of breed products. So that's kind of our lay of the land right now.
Excellent, thank you. You mentioned that you're in that more of a cross domain. You get to see the peripheral vision across the organizations. I think none has been more important in the last year,
Yes.
where COVID has been a APT, what our CISO operators would call APT, and advanced persistent threat, persistent nevertheless.
Yes.
Uh, and but I think the good and bad. I think the pandemic has definitely brought us all together as a community in ways we never thought possible. Customers to partners to organizations that have just fueled innovation, including your organization, in ways that you need to support your own business and customers. And top of mind for most leaders, such as yourself, has been how do you continue to operate seamlessly while providing the same levels of trust that your partners and customers have continued to sort of get used to, right? To rely on you. And so, from your perspective, what are some essential things that you've been thinking about for your specific organization uh, in preserving that trust and enabling innovation?
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think it's on top of everybody's mind lately. And I think for us, the move from in-office work to remote work was a huge shift, and it was a shift that essentially happened overnight. And I think security is always top of mind for us, and I think we needed to empower our end users to take responsibility for our security. They are the first line of defense, if you will. And we know from the recent months and years, hackers are always trying to kind of get in there, and we're trying to outthink them constantly. So I think that's definitely top of mind. One, because it needs to be, but two, when you're in the office and you kind of have that collaborative nature and everybody's talking, you have more control about what people do and everything like that. Now that everybody's at home, things got a little bit lax, not lax, but things are more relaxed when you have to go to work and you have to teach third grade math at the same time. Security
Well,
might not be top of
and,
mind.
and looking at the distractions. Yes, yeah.
Yes. So it became more and more important to have an educated end user that understood, part of the security is in your hands, and you need to be aware and you need to be diligent about it. The other thing I think that we needed to do in this past year is constantly reevaluate kind of what what are our thresholds for control, because obviously you're in the office, you have a lot of control, whether it be network, whether it be what devices are accessing your network, things like that. And when we all went up to home, that the number of devices and kind of where people were accessing just grew, and we had to change our posture to accommodate that. One, we didn't have a choice because we were in the middle of a pandemic, but two, we wanted to ensure that our end users were still able to work. They were still able to be as productive as they were in the office. So we had to get, we were well postured to do that. Box being one of our partners, you guys were ready to go. We're cloud first on that front, which made it a little bit easier. But the second part of that kind of hurdle is the change management around that. It kind of forced that behavior change on end users, and they had to, we had to walk them through kind of, we have these best of breed technologies that can really accommodate you working at home. You have to change the way you work a little bit, but we can totally kind of help you do that. So that change management and that end user behavior and that change of culture was a big kind of push for us. So I think those are, if I'm thinking of the top of mind things over the last excuse me, not 3 months, over the last year, and kind of going into the future, it's about empowering that end user to think about security. It's about empowering that end user to understand the technology stack that we have and how it can be so powerful to them, and they can use it to really empower their work at home.
Right. And some of these changes may be here to stay, right, Tiffany, when
Right.
you think about whether it's a hybrid environment of reentry or how, and I know many organizations, including yourself, are thinking about it. I know Box is thinking about what our reentry and model would look like. But how, with these things that, essentials top of mind that you shared, how has that impacted about um, architecting and sustaining technology environments, right? Whether it was net new investments made, expansion of current, but how are you thinking about architecting these environments for long-term, sustained operating models?
I think one thing that we go into every kind of vendor or kind of innovation session that we do internally with our applications, it is 100%. And you mentioned this a little earlier. It's about frictionless kind of integration. So we're constantly looking for, who do our vendors partner really well with? Who do they have tight integrations with straight out of the box? And how can we leverage those? Like I talked before, the behavior change with end users was the biggest hurdle. The more that we can consistently integrate and make it so easy and frictionless for them, the adoption rate goes through the roof. We provide value to our end user, and that's really kind of our first thought when looking, forward thinking on how we're going to architect our tech stack going forward. That is probably the single most important thing that we look for. Best of breed products. How do you play well with other products that we have in house? And then how can we really push outside of the boundaries there, or think of, what is possible with these integrations, and how can we customize them, or how can we push our vendors to have a tighter integration with one another. And I think it's important as not only a technologist, but I think it's important as a customer of a lot of these SaaS applications, that we are having those conversations, because I know, especially with Box, I have a lot of conversations about your roadmap, and listening to kind of what our use cases are and how you guys can, accommodate that, or where you can kind of leverage that, or improve the product. And I think that's really, really important, are those partnerships, and constantly thinking about innovation and integration.
Excellent. So, I mean, end user, you mentioned education was important, integration within your trusted ecosystem, so partner integration. But the change and culture of the organization are linked.
Yes.
How would you define um, what is, how would you know something is really best for your organization, given that the change management is also, intrinsically it's sort of linked with the culture of the organization?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really tough one, and I think for us, we kind of always have these three phases of end users. It's the people who really like the way that it was done 20 years ago. We have the people who are like, oh, it's really good the way that it is now. And then we have a group of users who are like, this is the next best thing, we need to get on that. From a technology perspective, it's not great to have like three different flavors of everything. We don't like to do that. So the behavior change is really, really important. I think part of making that behavior change go smoother and really increase the adoption of any given product is really having those conversations. So we have focus groups. We're constantly talking about this type of stuff with our end users in terms of like what do you want to have this be, or how do you work with data. And like I said, I work with Box a lot, and I go into these meetings, and the first thing out of my mouth 9 out of 10 times is, I'm not here to change the way you work. I'm here to make the way you work easier, and I can do that with Box, and we might be able to improve. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. And the other thing is with a lot of this technology that's end user facing, there's not one right way to do it. It's kind of, you can use it in any way that works for you. And I think to drive that change, having applications that have that flexibility, and they're not that fragile, and they can kind of ebb and flow with the end user requirements is really, really helpful. And I think that there are best of breed products that do that really well. And I'm partial to Box. I'm going to keep coming back to that. But it's great that in Box, you can use Box Drive, and you can access via the network path, which works for those people who like the way that it was done 20 years ago. You can access the UI and completely integrate there and use it there with the Office 365 integration, and those are great. That's great for the people who kind of like the technology and are in the next wave of what's the next thing coming. So to have products like that are able to accommodate a lot of these user behaviors all in one, you find that if they can do that and you can literally get them in there, they're gonna kind of, that change is gonna be so much easier. And we found that 100% in through the course of this pandemic, that has actually been the path that the majority of our users have taken, and made the change, and made it quickly, and it's been sustainable. We haven't had a lot of issues. And I think that's the other thing, like, change is great, you can get people to do that thing, but you need them to keep doing it over and over and over again.
Right,
So
right.
that,
Love it. Love it. So, Tiffany, I think if you ask Baskin Robbins, they will say 31 flavors is too less. But not in more modern technology architecture, right? You mentioned three flavors, from the if it ain't broke, don't fix it,
right,
to the why aren't we using this yet sort of
yes,
population, that you needed to support them where they were. You needed to go meet them where they were, in their comfort zone, in the ecosystem that they work with, and then empower them in that. Oh, you like working with O365? Okay, sure. I'm not asking you to exit that environment. Continue working there, but this is a way to work securely, right?
absolutely.
Okay. So you mentioned change, you mentioned the future. Speaking about the future, what are some challenges and opportunities you see when it comes to sustained, secure remote work?
I think definitely an opportunity that we see is just increased technology adoption. I think this is kind of have been a great place to or a great time to really get people to adopt that technology quicker. And we've definitely jumped on that. So I think that's the great thing that's kind of come out of this. I think the biggest challenge, or the thing that scares me the most, when thinking about kind of everybody being remote, and is it going to be a hybrid model when we get back, or is it going to be 100% remote, really is device trust. That's what kind of keeps me up at night, thinking about, because yes, everybody probably has a work laptop, but did they bring that to their soccer game, or did they bring that here? Are they accessing on their phone, and what kind of security is on the phone? Above and beyond that, when they're having a confidential conversation about a deal, is Alexa listening and, recording that as well? So that device trust, and kind of the Internet of Things that are now in every office. I mean, they're in
And
everybody's
you're
office
in your
at this
home.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is kind of, it keeps me up at night, and you have to think about how do you just secure that that environment? Can you secure that environment? So I think when we went to remote work, we kind of lost a lot of control, but we got a lot of good kind of benefits from that. So definitely thinking through that, thinking more broadly about what device trust means and how we can accommodate more devices and kind of make that frictionless kind of accessibility happen for our end users. But there does have to be a point where you got to draw the line and say, this is where it stops. We need to protect our data, we need to protect everything. And you have multi-layered security on top of that that does a really good job. But I think there is a proverbial line in the sand somewhere. Where that is right now, I don't know, but that's the one challenge that I see has come out of this. And then I think the other thing, the other opportunity I think that has come out of kind of the pandemic and happened is really around the ability to build kind of a better and more diverse workforce. I think remote work lends itself to opening that talent pool and getting people in that maybe you wouldn't have considered before. And I find that kind of aspect of things and that opportunity that I think a lot of companies have really exciting. I think it's not only exciting for companies, I think it's exciting for individuals. We're on the East Coast. I could get some great developer who's on the West Coast to come work for us now, and that would just be amazing. So I think that's also really, really exciting opportunity.
Excellent. So, device trust, top of mind. So, double click for that for our audience. This is about trusted or managed or unmanaged devices or trusted and untrusted devices. But because you need to empower your customers and your users with the device of choice, let's call it that way, right? BYOD or bring your own device, but you want to still be compliant, not just compliant, but the friction, the security and compliance that we spoke about. This is about differentiated policies or differentiated access. Like if you come from an untrusted device, you may be able to view but not print, you may be
Exactly.
able to view but not download,
Yep.
whereas a managed or a trusted device may give you more access to that same content. So enabling your users where you came from. You also talked about talent. Now opportunity is universal. Sorry, talent is universal, opportunity is not. And I think what you were talking about is the ability for Bain to tap into the best talent possible. So almost like democratizing the opportunity for
Yep.
talent that is
Yep.
there. So
Absolutely.
excellent. So as we, when what would so you talk this is if this is the future and this is the vision of the future, what would you look for from your trusted technology partners for this year and beyond to meet these challenges that you're facing or the opportunities that you want to empower?
I think in terms of the partnership that we're looking for, as I mentioned before, integration, integration, integration. So we're looking for best of breed products that easily integrate out of the box with one another, have open APIs, all of that stuff. Is really top of mind for us. It's something that we all always look for. We're also looking for flexibility in the ability to do customized things that might be custom for us, but may eventually make it into kind of the standard or native ability of any given product. And then I think the other thing that we're looking for in terms of vendors and partners is just like-minded organizations. And we talk a lot internally about the art of the possible. We want to partner with organizations that have that same kind of innovative spirit or the need to kind of push outside the box just a little bit. When we have vendor discussions around that stuff, that's sometimes when the best things happen, and it may be as simple as, we should really put a button right here and it would be so helpful. We did a thing recently. We're trying to reorganize our intranet because internal communications in the time of COVID are very important. And we're implementing a dining room app, and we're putting a little button for people who are in the office so they can order lunch. It's a very simple thing, and it happened in a meeting meeting, but it made a world of difference for our end users who are still in the office or are going into the office once a week. So it's just really thinking outside the box. I never thought at Bain Capital I would be working with dining room services and creating a dining app like Uber Eats for the office. But nonetheless, it was a necessity, and we made it work. And we had partners who were willing to kind of think outside the box to help us do that. So that's the kind of partnership that we're looking for to kind of take us into the future, into this new normal or whatever it looks like in the future, 2022.
Right. So integration paramount across the ecosystems that you want to support, and working with those like-minded organizations that help to empower that. To our audience, you heard it first, the art of the possible from Tiffany on this Octane session. And she gave some examples of what those possibilities would do look like now and what they could look like in the future as well. So Tiffany, now we're going to shift pace just a bit. We're going to go into what is called the lightning round.
Oh,
And these are responses 10 seconds or less. And this is just your take on perspective on some of these questions. So the first one to you is, what is the state of cloud security today? How would you describe it?
I would say it's always evolving. It needs to be multi-layered in order to do any good, and I think it's essential. I don't think it's something that anybody can ignore or not put time or effort into at this point in time.
So evolving, multi-layered, essential. I hope all the product leaders are listening into that and taking notes. What is one promising technology or solution that you have in mind this year?
Not that I have in mind, but something I read about and I'm super, super excited about is in recruiting using some gamification and cognitive science to create some apps to kind of get those recruits from all over because we now have that opportunity. I think that space and doing that kind of recruitment and kind of interviewing and things like that is super, super cool. And I'm interested to see what happens with that because I think it can be really a game changer.
Wonderful. So gamification of finding talent. I mean, we're all vying for that
Yeah,
same talent, so let's make it fun for them, right? Maybe
exactly.
we're going to join the super fun company then.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and if you weren't in your role, if you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing?
Well, today I would probably be like a ski instructor or something like that, like on the West Coast, like Utah, something like that. Having fun out there, skiing the West Coast, I think.
Wow, no, that's excellent. Did you always enjoy skiing, and
Yeah,
did you?
I do. I grew up on the East Coast, and I've only skied the East. I've skied the East Coast of the U.S. I've skied the East Coast in Canada. I've never skied the West Coast, so it's definitely something a pipe dream. My cousin is actually out there skiing, and I'm getting thousands of pictures from her, so I'm a little jealous.
Good. And so just remind me not to be on the same slope as you because I probably come tumbling down and tumble to as well. So, well, Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing your insights. It was excellent. And thank you for taking time and creating this enjoyable session at Octane 21.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was super fun.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.